Yo, what up, guys? We're on the clock. Welcome back to 6 Month Madness. It's your boy Caleb. Today, I am joined by somebody who may refer to himself as an extraterrestrial intellect, but today he is our resident Spartans fan. You may know him as EasymoneyKev on Twitter. Kevin, how are we doing? It's good to have you, man.
Man, I appreciate you guys for having me. I'm honored to be here. Been checking you guys out for a minute now. Glad to see all the work y'all doing. Keep doing it. So we can get into this.
Yeah, I don't know how much you have watched, kind of the 6 Month Madness episodes, but basically how this goes every week, I update the kind of the records for all the teams on, it's obviously Tuesday. We upload this on Wednesday mornings every week. I kind of make my own top 25. So I actually do like a top 32, but then I chop it up. But so here's my top 25 for this week. I'll kind of go through it. You can try your best to keep up, but I'll move through it pretty quickly because we have quite a bit of stuff to talk about. Obviously, we got a big game going on right now, just about to enter the second half. Okay, so number one, moving up from 3, I have the Houston Cougars at number 1 at 16-1, UConn Huskies at number 2, 15-2, Purdue Boilermakers at 3, 15-1. We got Kansas at 4, 14-1, UCLA at 5 at 14-2, Alabama or UCLA at 5, 14-2, Alabama at 6, 13-2, Arizona at 7, 14-2, Arkansas at 8 at 12-3, Miami at 9 at 13-2, Gonzaga moving up from, they've kind of been steadily rising. They kind of fell at the beginning of the year. Now they've been creeping their way back up, moving up from 14-10. They're already back to 14-3. They've had a great turnaround to their season. Drew Timme has been about as consistent as can be. Tennessee, another team that, faltered a little bit there at the beginning, but now starting to turn around. Should be excited to see how they carry into SEC play at 11 at 13-2. Missouri, another SEC team at 13-2 at 12. Kansas State, my biggest riders are moving up 18 spots this week with some of the wins lately, knocking off some big teams, at 14-1. Hard to argue with that record and then some of their resume. We got Texas right below them at 14 at 13-2. North Carolina also steadily rising, much similar to Gonzaga at 15 at 11-5. Virginia at 16. They're starting to fall here at 11-3. Utah, one of my personal favorites, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about them later, at 17 at 12-5. Auburn at 18 at 12-3. Duke at 19 at 12-4. My Wisconsin Badgers at 11-3 at 20. Arizona State at 21 at 13-3. Michigan State Spartans at 22 at 11-4. Baylor at 23 at 10-5. Illinois at 24 at 10-5, and Indiana also at 10-5 at 25. Thoughts while I catch my breath?
I'm not too mad at that list. I honestly think it's solid throughout the way. I think we should. Me personally, like being a Michigan State fan, I don't put too much like stock into our personal ranking because I kind of like when they like forget about us a little bit. Yeah, exactly. So I actually like that list though. That's a really good list.
So kind of how I think. How obviously you got to kind of keep up with teams that are winning and losing and kind of the hot streaks. But I think the biggest thing that I try to fall back on is if the season ended today, what would be my 25 favorite teams if I had to rank the teams I think could win the championship and go actually all the way? Like, these are my teams. There may be teams that are outside the top 25. There's some teams like very close in my, 26 to 32 range that, TCU's in there. And just, how am I supposed to determine that they're supposed to win like the championship when they're so inconsistent? So I'm much more like willing to put a team like Michigan State. I've had them kind of in the top 28 for most of the year, even though they have faltered a little bit at times, just because the consistency of the program year over year, it's hard to argue against that. And, when you guys are knocking off the Wolverines, it's tough to be upset as a Spartans fan. So how would you feel about your guys' win? Obviously getting a 6-point win, extending that win streak to 6 wins.
How
are we feeling about that game? I didn't get a chance to watch it, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Man, well, like you said, anytime we face a rival, I'll always take it, even if it's an ugly win, which it was. Like both teams were playing really good defense actually in the first half. Like Michigan,
both teams I think under 35% from the field.
Yep, and with Michigan, like they've been struggling offensively, so they really have to hang their hard hats defensively. And I think with us, that's a staple of our program is playing defense. You don't play defense, you're not going to play. So I kind of expected that, but I just think the the biggest, differential was our guard play compared to them. Like that was the biggest difference to me. Like AJ Hogard and Tyson Walker, like nothing against Doug McDaniel. I think Doug McDaniel is actually going to be good.
Yeah.
He's just a freshman.
Mini Doug McBuckets, as I call him.
Yeah, he's a player, and I think he's only going to get better and better. He's going to be a pest in the Big Ten for the next few years. But
something about Michigan with getting those under 6 foot guards, man. I mean, they barely made it a year or two without Isaiah Brooks or whatever. A year, not even, without him, and they already got his spot filled. How about Malik Hall though? Malik Hall off the bench in 23 minutes, 15. He's a smooth player. What do you think about him? I'm curious what your take on him, kind of his prospect.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually tweeted out like a couple months before the season. I tweeted like essentially that Malik Hall could be one of the biggest X factors in the country this year. Because I think you look around, you got, I say Anton Watson is that for Gonzaga. Andre Jackson is probably the biggest X factor out there for UConn. You got a couple of them. I like Noah Clowney at Alabama too, but
we'll definitely talk about him.
Malik, to me, he's one of them guys where it's just like he literally can do a little bit of everything. Like he's an underrated passer. You can put him in the post, he can work out. He's a pretty good perimeter player too offensively. Defensively, he's been amazing this year. Like we're not a deep team, of course, so we literally have to stay healthy, even though we've dealt with a couple of injuries between him and Jaden Akins. But when he's on the court, man, we're just a significantly better team. I honestly kind of undervalued him too, because them games that he didn't play, like you could just tell we were completely different team. We didn't even look nearly the same. So, getting him back and the fact that he's still not even starting right now is kind of funny, but I guess we're just going to ride with that, which I wouldn't be mad at. But like, he's a player, man. You can give him the ball. He can take over games by himself single-handedly. So I enjoy everything about his game.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I look at Michigan State and you guys have Sissoko in the middle, who I've been really impressed with. Really just a big, dominant, can really move people, get where he wants to on the glass. And then also, in the pick and roll can be a threat. I mean, as we've seen at times during the year, I agree with you though. Malik Hall is that one X factor. When you look at their depth at the guard position, it's pretty crazy. They have a couple guys that really can make a push into draft conversations if this team gets rolling. And, with this 6-game win streak you guys got going, it's looking like things could turn pretty scary for the Big Ten. I mean, I'll have some interesting notes about the Big Ten in general, but was there anything else you want to say about Michigan State?
I'll just say that I feel like we were very underrated going into the season, because I understand we had a lot of unproven guys. I can understand that, but like being a Michigan State fan, like I've seen this play out a million times, and like we always have a point guard, and AJ Hogard is turning into a player, and Tyson Walker has been the biggest revelation this year. I think a big part of that was because my biggest thing, like if I was a coach, I would never want, if I'm a coach at an established program, I never want my point guard to be a transfer point guard like Juwan Howard does at Michigan, because you want somebody that's been there, that knows your system, that knows how to run the team and different things like that. And so like we put a lot on Tyson Walker, but you can see now this year we're using him more of a scorer, and he's completely taken off in that role. So I honestly love this team. I think Izzo seen the landscape of the game, and I guess we'll talk about this in a minute too, but it's no like dominant team out there like that right now. So I think that's a good thing for the game in general.
I mean, the inconsistency within the top 25 has been pretty wild this year. I mean, even with how good some of these teams have looked, like UConn, like Purdue, like Houston, and some of these matchups, I mean, even teams like Duke, like North Carolina, they have their moments where Kansas has plenty of moments where they just look like absolute juggernauts with some of the talent that's on the roster. And then Duke goes and loses by 24 to NC State. And as a team, they commit 21 turnovers. I mean, that's just not winning basketball. I mean, when, NC State got 9 steals, I think, and 10 blocks in that game, or 10 steals, 9 blocks. I mean, I don't know. That was a rough one. I had a really bad week picking games last week. I'll be honest with you, Kevin. I had a really rough one, and we'll kind of go through it later on in the pod. But this was one that where I had picked Duke, and I thought maybe Tyrese Proctor could have one of those nights where he gives Turk a problem, but that didn't happen. NC State's a great team. I'm going to stop underrating them. Going through some of the other games, Missouri versus Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas was able to finally put together, a good resume building win. They've been inconsistent in a lot of these games against better SEC schools and other Power 5 schools, just hit or miss on different nights. Ricky Council was a big reason that they got the dub with 25 points. You know, Demar Hodge is one of my guys, and he didn't have the best night, but I think that they'll get him. I think Missouri's going to get him back next time when it's in Missouri. I'm pretty confident in that team. That was a team that at the beginning of the year, preseason, that I was like looking at them with all the transfers that they brought in, and then as well as some of the guys that they had just, you know, making steady steps. It's hard to hate those guys, the Tigers over there.
And Dennis Gates, man.
What?
I said Dennis Gates, a hell of a coach too, man.
Yeah, dude, he's been doing phenomenal. I mean, the way that he utilizes Kobe Brown is just, I mean, beyond me. He's able to turn that he's able to get that guy the ball wherever he needs it. You know, he's presented himself as a dominant, you know, scorer off the wing. So he'll be interesting to see where his draft conversation goes towards the end of the year. He's starting to get some rumbling now, I think, as they continue to, like, people start to realize, oh, this Missouri team's actually legit. Like, they're not going to go anywhere because they are so good offensively and they can strap up late in the game on defense. I mean, DeMar Hodge was Defensive Player of the Year and Cleveland State Horizon. Yeah, Horizon League. Yeah, he was Defensive Player in the Horizon League last year. And I mean, came in this year and has been one of the, I think he's like a top 15 in like overall efficiency. If you like kind of average up all the metrics, he's probably a top 15 player in terms of efficiency on offense in the country. I mean, it's going to be a tough team to out there in the SEC. A lot of good teams. So, I mean, again, TCU beating Baylor. That was another one where, you know, Mike Miles and Kente George dueled, and Baylor's been inconsistent. TCU themselves has been super inconsistent. You know, I'm not a big Mike Miles guy, to be honest, but he had a great night. If we want to get into it, we can. We got still some games to pick later. And TCU may or may not be one of those games, but I mean, if we have some spicy debates, we'll save them for the end. I just want to kind of get through some of these games so we can talk more, you know, talk about this game against Wisconsin going on right now. So I got Purdue also escaped by only 2 against Ohio State. Bryce Sensabaugh had a great game with 21 points. Just his clutch shot making down the stretch and his ability to just create space is different. Like, you know, that is a skill where he's probably top 2 to 3 in this draft class. In terms of his ability to create space. Xavier squeaks out against Villanova, 88-80. Cam Whitmore starting to show up, man, 26 in that one. Zach Fremantle, though, 29, 11, and 4. They kind of stomped some of Villanova's dreams late. Fremantle's a beast in the pick and roll. I mean, he in the short roll, that guy can put some moves on you, and he's got great touch around the basket. I've been pleasantly surprised with Kobe Jones as well. You know, he didn't have the best game against Villanova, but I talked about him on the War Room episode that I had going out today. Is that I was joined by people from No Ceilings Draft Deeper and as well as Nick Agar Johnson. We kind of talked a little bit about Kobe Jones and some of the things that we've been impressed by. And I mean, Zach Fremantle is one of those guys who's receiving a lot of those blessings from Kobe Jones's ability to pass the ball. Very similar to what we've seen with Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton. Ryan Nembhard's been phenomenal moving the ball and getting it in the right spots, especially inside. And then, I mean, there's games like this where it's like South Carolina and Tennessee. I picked that game because I'm like, you know, G.G. Jackson versus Julian Phillips. And I picked South Carolina and they lose by 43. So, I mean, it's just been a year. I mean, it was a week for me last week, but it has been one of those years where like you said, a lot of parity in basketball. You know, in the NBA, we're seeing it, and it's definitely showing so far this college season. I mean, we'll get to some of the parity here in a second within some of these conferences, like the Big 10, like the Big 12, the ACC. The wins are stacked up. Like, some mid-major performers. So getting into some of our segments, one guy that I got to highlight, Andrew Rode, a guy that for St. Thomas, Minnesota, that I've been kind of hyping up throughout the year. I got to keep drilling this man. On the 7th in his last game, he had 24 points, 8 assists, 3 steals, no turnovers. Hyper efficient, 6'7" point guard, can kind of do it all. The shooting is still not there, but this is a guy who I just beg you to please just check him out, Kevin. Send him to other people. This guy's a dog. He is one of those dudes where Creighton. I just see him in a Creighton Blue Jays uniform next year. I think that he'll fit in perfectly there in that, you know, kind of that Baylor Shireman role. where he's a spot up shooter mostly, but can create off the dribble and drive to pass for sure. Like he's got this one drive in this last game where he puts like a little gets down to the baseline on the block and wrap around pass into the middle of the key. Guy grabs the ball, just poster. You know what I mean? He wrapped around.
Yeah.
Guy turns and he's getting dunked on. Just a great feed. So, he's one of those guys I just love to watch play basketball. Eastern Washington, I wanted to make sure I noted on here. I talked about Cedric Coward for Eastern Washington on that No Ceilings pod as well. They're on a 6-game win streak. This is another guy, Kev, if you have a chance to check him out, super high efficiency, pretty much a dog. And then Jake Stevens for Chattanooga. I don't know if you've been following along with the smoothest shooting 7-footer I've seen in a long time. He transferred from VMI this past season, and he had his first game against VMI. Obviously, they're in the same conference. I love an interconference transfer. It's always fun. Mm-hmm. That first game, 37, 15 on 11 of 18, 5 of 6 from 3. Oh.
Bad man.
He's a bad man, bro. He's disgusting. He's a guy that is another one of these mid-major players with the talent that is in the game today. It is hard to see a team that won't take a flyer on him, even as an undrafted guy or late in the second round. A 7-footer who has a legit jump shot, not a set shot, a legit jump shot with real touch and real post ability and footwork. It's tough. I mean, there's a lot of talent, and especially as, guys get older, they just, they're not flying on people's draft radar, but he's one that I think he'll find a career somewhere playing pro basketball for sure. So stocks on the rise. This is kind of a segment where I talk about, just things that are going on, like really, really relevant stuff that's kind of heating up. Baba Miller is making his debut against Wake Forest tomorrow. Kind of an interesting matchup, seeing him against possibly Bobby Klitman, two players that kind of are cut from the same cloth as like, they're utilized primarily, like their full potential is being utilized as kind of like a point forward. Do you have any take on Baba Miller? He's a guy that I had in like my top 10 preseason. So,
yeah, I think he's a player, and I'll say this too, is that the NCAA did him so wrong. That entire situation was just so stupid and pointless. And I mean, I guess we shouldn't expect nothing less from them, but it was still stupid. But yeah, he's going to be a player. I think, as you know, this draft class is going to be loaded this upcoming year. And Baba Miller name, because that suspension kind of been quiet, obviously because he hasn't been playing, but coming over from Spain, like, he is a problem. I think he's a prototypical NBA wing right now.
Yeah, it is hard to see, if a guy like John Butler is able to find some sort of role in the G League already as a rookie. It's hard not to see how a guy like Baba Miller is not going to be able to turn himself into a productive player. The defense is the only thing that I'd be worried about, but Florida State gets after it on that end. That's something that they gripe about. It's very similar to, I thought that the fit was, a great fit, very similar to like the Keontae George Baylor fit, where, it's a guy who, he shows flashes of, shot for Baba more specifically, he shows flashes of shot blocking from the weak side, shows some good foot speed in the open court. It's just the defensive consistency needs to be there. I mean, limited film coming from overseas, but I'm just really excited to watch him play. I just want to see him play. At the end of the day, we just want to see these guys get out there and be successful. So, wishing them the best of luck against Wake Forest. I think that'll be a good game. Obviously your first game back, we've not really been impressed this year by guys making debuts, especially not within the first week. Like Cam Whitmore was kind of lackluster. Same thing with Nick Smith. So we'll have to see. I'm just going to, take the first game with a grain of salt. So it's definitely the full evaluation at the end of the day that matters. Houston has got 7 straight wins entering today. One of these teams on major heaters, just like Michigan State. Clemson is first in the ACC. What is up with that, man? They're on a 5-game streak. I'll say that they're undefeated in conference play, but they've yet to be tested by any of the major forces in the conference. I know that they have Duke coming up, and they'll have UNC and the rest of the dogs soon. So I'm curious to see if they hold up. I mean, they were not a team I had on my radar preseason. I'm not sure about you, but
no,
I don't know.
Not at all.
Yeah. Dayton, another team 6 straight wins after a bumpy start. Deron Holmes has been lethal, averaging like 20 and 10 over the last 6, I'm pretty sure, for them. He's a player. Like, he's a first rounder for sure for me. I'm not sure about you, but you like Deron? Yeah, he's a great player. His mobility and versatility, both those things, those 2 words.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's different. I posted early on in the season, he had a game with 5 blocks, and one of the blocks, he closed out so quickly on the perimeter for a guy who's 6'11", like 240. His ability to, get off his feet quickly. The timing's there. I've just been really impressed with the stretch that he's put together after kind of an inconsistent and a feeling out period that they had after, they started out pretty decent. It's just, I think there's a lot of teams that in the middle of the season, I think it happened to Michigan State where, you have these first couple of games, you get all those jitters out. Guys are playing really, really well. Teams are likely going to shoot a little bit over, or they're going to shoot under kind of what their expectation is. And then there's that adjusting period. And we've kind of just gone through that at the end of the non-conference schedule. So, Dayton's one of those teams that just kind of putting a note by. I don't know if I'm convinced yet that they're a tournament factor like I might have been preseason. But we'll have to see. Xavier and Providence for the Big East, both on 9-game win streaks. And it's really just been all about Kobe Jones and Bryce Hopkins. Zach Fremantle, like I mentioned before, has had some monster games, but Kobe Jones has really been the X factor for that team. His ability to score and create offense in the pick and roll. It's tough at 6'6", dude, the things he can do with the ball in his hands. Pretty tough. Bryce Hopkins, a pretty dynamic interior threat. I've been loving. I think he could be a guy 2nd rounder. His rebounding ability, like, jumps off the screen. So I've enjoyed both those teams. The Big East has been a lot of fun so far to watch this year. Creighton was the team we were all thinking about preseason, but it's been everyone but. Creighton. The Big Ten. Now this is, I said it before the season. I don't know if you were feeling the same way, but I was firm. When I met Chucky Hepburn for the first time, I walked up to him. I said, "You guys are going to be in the best conference in college basketball. And if you guys win and put together wins, you're going to be in the draft conversation." And I think that is what it's been for a lot of players in the Big Ten all across the landscape. I think for guys like Emily Call, their names are lingering in some of these conversations. Jaden Akins is still staying in the conversations, even though he hasn't really played a consistent stretch of ball. Like, people know what these guys can do because they're getting national spotlight and their teams are winning. When they are playing, they're contributing to winning. And for the Big Ten, 11 of the 14 teams have 10 or more wins, and 13 of the 14 have 9 or more. So it is the winningest conference in college basketball right now. Besides Michigan State, who's your favorite right now to win the Big Ten, do you think?
Man, besides Michigan
State? Maybe besides Purdue as well. I think Purdue is probably the obvious pick, but maybe besides Michigan State and Purdue, who do you think is kind of that next tier?
I'd probably say the Badgers, man. To be honest, I think, I'll be honest, I was super high on Illinois going into the season. I still kind of am. They got the win versus you guys this past weekend without Tyler Wall, but they just have so much talent. I think that's kind of been their biggest issue too, is they literally just had too much talent, and there's too many guys trying to get shots. But I think with Sky Clark leaving, hopefully he figures it out. They should start to play a little bit better. But I look at Wisconsin.
More Ty Rodgers, bro.
That too, exactly. And again, they just have so many guys. It's not even funny. Like, it's honestly crazy. But Terrence Shannon, Matthew Mayer, Coleman Hawkins, Dane Danger, Sincere Harris, Jaden Epps, like, it's unbelievable how many guys they have on their ride. I think somebody else is going to transfer by the end of this. But I think Wisconsin, though, like, every year, like, people don't like watching them play. I understand it. They're not they don't play a fun brand of basketball, but
not at all.
It's consistent.
Post to post passing. Who would have thought that wouldn't be entertaining? Post to post passing,
But my thing, though, it's consistent, though. So it's like, I respect it because I feel like they test you mentally more than anything, because you have to be disciplined. You can't overhelp or anything. They're going to make you pay for all the littlest things, because, like everybody always says, they don't turn the basketball. So they really
have to make your shots. You have to make your shots when you have open shots against this Wisconsin, especially this Wisconsin team. And I'll kind of take over and kind of shifted into, talking about the game tonight. I'm just going to do a quick update, little score update. I'm not sure if you have it on a TV around you. I do not, but 52-50. I mean, it's still a close one going in the last 7 minutes. I want to try and get us out of here. Hopefully by the time it's over, but I mean, Hepburn's got 10, Hogard's got 4, but Aikens is coming in with 12. Hauser's got 15. So it's been a solid dogfight. That was my only note that I had before, was it's going to be a dogfight and a slugfest. And some of the matchups I was looking forward to see were Hepburn versus Hogard, Sissoko versus Crowell, just because I feel like that, Hepburn versus Hogard, they're both kind of post-up guards who like to play make first, and definitely are the primary initiator. Whereas Sissoko and Crowell are a clash of styles, obviously the stretch big versus the dominant interior force. I was curious to see Malik Hall versus Isagen, both the 6 men. Both can be relied on for scoring punch at times, especially Isagen with his shooting. And I'll kind of get into that in a second. And he's got 13. He's 3 for 3 right now. He's 5 for 6. I mean, playing well. We don't have Wall tonight, but one thing that I was looking forward to see at some point is seeing Hauser versus Wall, kind of seeing the 2 white wings square off. I think that they're very opposite players, whereas Wall's like an interior scorer, back to the basket guy, and he'll strap you up on the defensive end. And Hauser's, obviously the spot up shooting threat that he is. I've been impressed with Hauser's defense as well. So I was kind of upset when I heard Wall wasn't playing, but he'll be back soon. The biggest thing with this Wisconsin team that's the difference, and what I've been kind of hinting at, we've always been able to find a player that can score inside, regardless what the position is. It doesn't have to be the big man. A lot of people, the first name that comes to mind when they think about Wisconsin basketball, especially recently, maybe in the past, it was a guy like Trevon Hughes, but nowadays it's Frank Kaminsky. Frank Kaminsky is all people think of when they think of Wisconsin basketball. And, we've been able over the last, since 2015, when he was around, that's so long ago, man. Time flies. But since then, like, we've been able to consistently find a scoring threat. We had Brad, especially recently, we had Brad Davidson and Johnny Davis, guys that are just able to create their own basket in isolation, guys that you can throw the ball down to in the post. Brad, exceptional post up guard for his size. Like, being a player who's 6'1", he was backing everybody down. Any skinny guard that got on him, he was taking him to the post. And Chucky does the same stuff. So seeing guys like that, that's the consistency that we get from a leading scorer. And Wall has been that guy for us this year. The thing that is different about this Wisconsin team, I think, where we could be a factor in the tournament, especially, is the shooting. We have shooting this year, something that's not like really been a consistent thing. We have guys that are actually, like, we have 2 guys in particular, Max Klesmit and Connor Isagen, who are just spot up shooters. They're 3-and-D players. And I think that that's not a common thing for Wisconsin. We normally only have really 1 or 2 guys at most who can shoot it. And then when you have Crowell on the floor as well, the spacing is just much different than in years past. And I think I don't think Tyler Wall is an exceptional basketball player, if I'm being honest. I think he's solid. He can score with his back to the basket, and he's consistent with what he does. I think he's a better defender than he is an offensive player. But I think our spacing this year has really accentuated some of the things that he's able to do in the paint as well in the mid-range, where, he's been lethal. Chucky, my guy, what a dog. So, with that being said, I want to quickly get through the NCAA women's game of the week from last week, and then we can move on to some of our predictions and get ourselves out of here as we're heading into crunch time. Just kind of touching on the game last week. I have been struggling picking competitive games on the women's side. I had Seton Hall versus St. John's, a 12-3 team versus undefeated St. John's squad. And Seton Hall just absolutely blew out St. John's, handing them their first loss of the season. It was like the second week where the score differential of the game of the week for the women's side was like 20 plus. And I can't catch a break. St. John's gets their first and only loss of the season, 21 turnovers. Sydney Cooks and Amari Wright for Seton Hall both got done, both with 17 points. I've been watching a lot of women's basketball this year. I'll be honest. And I will say that it has grown my appreciation for, men's basketball and the athleticism and talent that really exists within, the sport of men's basketball.
Mhm.
But, the skill, the strategy, and the coaching of women's basketball is different. And I think I'll make a prediction right now on this podcast just so it can be set in stone. I think in the next 20 years, we're going to see a massive revolution in the women's game. And it's going to rival, other pro-American sports at some point. I think it'll start getting some traction finally. Anybody I speak to about women's basketball, they're just like, you just got to give it time. They're like 20 years behind the men's game. You know what I mean? Think about it. The NBA just hit its 75th year in its history. WNBA is barely 25 years old. So, or not even 25 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's nearing there. But, I just think that this is an interesting note. And I've really been enjoying watching women's basketball. But what I've been enjoying watching even more is competitive men's play. And I got some competitive games here for you to pick. So starting off with the men's game of the week this week, since obviously you're a Spartans fan, we had to go with the Michigan State game. You referenced it earlier. We got so these are by my rankings, of course, because I'm not going to give the AP poll any love. I have number 22 Michigan State versus number 25 Illinois. Who are you taking in this one? I'll be surprised if you go Illinois.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Probably like a week and a half ago, I would have went Illinois. Even though, of course, every team in the Big Ten plays better at home. Every team in the country plays better at home for the most part. So, I do think Illinois is going to make this game interesting. Like, I don't think it's going to be a dogfight from start to finish. They always play as good, especially recently, because for some reason they just do. So, I kind of wanted to pick them, but I think we're going to, in this stretch, because, we have y'all tonight. We got Illinois, I believe, on Friday. I think Purdue, we play either Sunday or Monday. So, I think we're going to go 2-3 in that stretch. I hope we go 2-3 at least. So I'm gonna take us to win this game in Champaign. Again, it's not gonna be easy. They have the guard play that matches up with us very, very well. So it's gonna be a dogfight from start to finish. But I'm gonna go with my Spartans in that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Michigan State as well. I think this one lies in the backcourt. Like you said, I think Sincere Harris is gonna have to have a really impact game. Much similar to how I thought Connor Easygen was gonna have to have an impact game tonight for Wisconsin to be competitive down the stretch. Easygen's doing it right now. We'll see if Harris can do it. I got Michigan State as well. Moving down the slate. Tomorrow, number 6, Alabama takes on number 8, Arkansas. I have the Razorbacks. What are you thinking here?
Ooh. I'm going Alabama. I'm still high on Arkansas. I was super high, just like everybody else was going into the season. Like, I love Muss, but I'm going Bama just because I think with the losses of Trayvon Brazile and Nick Smith Jr., Arkansas is kind of in like an adjustment period, and they usually struggle with Muss historically the past few years early in the non-conference slate, and then they just get hot at the right time come March. So I think they're still trying to figure it out with everybody kind of having to play a new role outside of like Anthony Black. So I'm going with Alabama in this one. I think Brandon Miller should have a game.
Yeah, see, I really, really want that to happen. I really want this is kind of the story that I painted for this one is stacked freshman class versus stacked freshman class. I mean, Clowney, Bradley, Miller versus Smith, Black, Walsh. And I think the thing for me here is I think Arkansas is about to hit that stride that you're talking about. And I think it's going to come from an unfamiliar place. I think there's going to be a night where Jordan Walsh shows up and his impact is felt. I think the Mitchell twins are going to have a day inside against, kind of an undersized and not as strong center in Clowney, and I've seen them go up against Bediako in the past and kind of have their way inside rebounding the ball. So I'm going to go with Arkansas, and I think it's going to be a gritty one. Like, I just don't see this being a game where Brandon Miller scores 25 because I just don't think very many players are going to score over 10, if I'm being honest. I don't think either team shoots very well, and it's a fast-paced and sloppy game from a lot of freshmen on the court and underclassmen. UConn versus Marquette. This is kind of my sleeper game. I love Marquette. Obviously, I'm from Wisconsin. And I love the roster this year. Cam Jones, Osei Gadaro. We talked about Prosper on the pod today. I'll let you go this one first. Number 2 UConn in my rankings. They've been number 1 for several weeks. Just moved down this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I love what Shaka Smart is building too at Marquette. I think he was a great hire for them being from the state. But I'm gonna go with the Huskies in this one. I just trust them. Is it in stores or is it in Milwaukee?
It's in Marquette. It's at Marquette in
Okay,
Milwaukee.
yeah. So that makes it even tougher challenge because Marquette plays defense. So they're gonna need a night from Adama Sanogo, and they definitely gonna need Jordan Hawkins shooting to continue on the road. But I'm a trust in Danny Hurley in this one though.
Yeah. So kind of again, kind of going through matchups here. It's Cam Jones versus Tristan Newton. He got the best block through, I think the first 10 games of the season, the best box plus minus player in the country in Tristan Newton. And a lot of that has to do with his defense. And Cam Jones has just been on one all season, shooting the ball and scoring. So kind of offense versus defense. And then Prosper versus Jackson. Both of those guys can get out in transition. I'm really pumped to see that forward matchup, talking about draft implications as well. We got Iguodala and Sanogo. So those are 6 guys and 3 matchups that I think are going to be really fun to watch. And it's a big reason why I picked this game, just because there's so many pro prospects. But I have UConn as well. Too much talent on that roster. And like you said, there is one guy that sticks out that doesn't have a matchup there from Marquette, and it is Hawkins, and he's been on a tear lately. So, moving on, TCU, number 30 TCU taking on number 14 Texas. I have the Horned Frogs in this one. Texas has been inconsistent, and TCU has been inconsistent as well. But at times, TCU has been inconsistently beating teams that are better than them on paper. And I think this is going to be another one where Mike Miles takes on Tyrese Hunter, and I'm just going to pick Mike Miles in this one. I think I've been really disappointed with a lot of Texas's offensive play. They just haven't really impressed me that much. And TCU is a team that I think can score with them. So I'd be interested to see how this one goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Longhorns just because I feel like in order to beat them, you have to be able to shoot over them because the defense that they do offer a ton of different problems, and you have to be able to knock down shots. I think that's been the biggest issue with TCU outside of a couple injuries, like not having Damian Ball. But I think Texas just has the shooting between Tyrese Hunter, between Marcus Carr, and a couple other guys. Like they should be fine too. So I think they're gonna have a game versus TCU personally, and
I
I
can
think
see
that should. Yeah.
I'm really trying to imagine this one going TCU's way, and I think it really has to be a specific scenario where like you said, they're gonna have to shoot the ball really well. I just have been loving what I've been seeing from their offense, like over the last just week in particular. Like I said, I don't like Mike Miles, but he makes it really, really hard when he just gets buckets all the time. So moving on to this one, we got this one is on Thursday, number 17 Utah versus number 5 UCLA. Utah's, if in case you haven't noticed, there's pretty great disparity between Utah's ranking on mine and where they probably rank in AP poll. It's probably a difference of probably about 30 at least. I love the Utes. I love the way their roster's put together. Very veteran squad. And they're taking on another veteran squad in UCLA. The key matchup for me here is Gabe Madsen, the Madman, versus Jalen Clark. And I gotta take Utah on this one. And here's why. Brandon Carlson is a monster. This is a 7-foot stretch big who is where Jake Stevens is, an offensive player. This guy can play defense. He can block shots and get up. So I just think that versatility, his ability to knock down shots in the perimeter, you pair him with his younger brother, Ben Carlson, and you have kind of a two twin towers approach, and both of them can shoot it. I don't know who on UCLA is going to be really stepping out to guard that. And then even when they do, they have guys like Madsen that they can kick it to, who can also create their own shot going to the basket. Just an interesting squad for the Utes. I'm curious what you think of this one.
I'm gonna go with the Bruins just because I think they're finally starting to figure it out. Defensively, you never worry about that with a Mick Cronin-led team. The offense was always going to be the biggest problem because you know what you're going to get out of Jaime Jaquez. You know what you're going to get out of Tiger Campbell. Jalen Clark can be that third option on different nights, but he's one of them like Swiss Army knife type of players, another X Factor type player. So you don't really expect him to be that guy. But if they can just get that third consistent score, they'll be so fine. And I don't know who's going to come from. Like me personally, I don't really
Campbell.
It's not that I don't trust Amari Bailey in that role. I just don't think that's his game personally. And so I think it's kind of interesting.
I think Clark's got to take a step further and take a step to the forefront in his volume. And I think that's got to come from Cronin giving him more of that role. And I think Tiger's got to be the guy that is the third option behind Hami, where he's consistently hitting the mid-range pull-up, knocking down threes.
All right.
The next game that we have is on the 14th over the weekend. We have number 9 Miami taking on NC State. I kind of have this one pitched as a battle of, obviously the ball dominant guards, both prominent scoring threats who can also, clamp up on the other end. Isaiah Wong versus Terquavion Smith. You want to give me a quick rundown on where you view those guys as prospects and then your pick on the game?
Man, Terquavion, I was honestly kind of surprised he didn't stay in the draft last year because he definitely would have been one of the best point guards in the class. And I still think he will be this year, even though it's a little bit more talented at the point guard spot this time around. But he's such a player, man. Like so lanky, can get to his spots with ease, tough finisher inside inside the paint. Like he's just the type of point guard you want to be your leader. So I really like his game a lot. And then for Isaiah Wong, like he's been playing like a first team All-American, like really, and he's been special. And so I love everything that he's doing for Coach Larinaga and kind of revitalizing that Miami program. But I'm gonna go with the Canes because I think Nigel Pack is starting to kind of figure it out. So I think they're starting to hit their stride a little bit too. And they had that tough loss for Georgia Tech, but I think they should be straight in this game against NC State.
Yeah, I have Miami as well. Like one guy that I've been really impressed with is Casey Morsell, who's been awesome efficiency wise off the ball. And I think that's the biggest thing is Terquavion Smith has a lot of offensive help. And then also guys getting after on the defensive end. Where for Miami, I mean, I like Norchad Omier. I think he's great defensively and can do some things offensively, but they don't have a prominent secondary scoring threat that where if Wong shots off, they have a guy that, we're fine. This guy can go get it. Like he can go create shots, not only for himself, but for others. I think that's the biggest difference between those two teams.
I agree.
Yeah. Moving to the women's side quickly. We got number 2 Stanford taking on number 8 UCLA. I can't not take UCLA twice in one video. So I'm actually have them knock off Stanford in this one. What are you thinking?
I got to go with Stanford, man. Haley Jones, Cam Brink, Fran Beliebe, man. Honestly, they're the pick to win it all this year. I just think they have it, man. Again, this will be their second time. Those 3 I just mentioned, like they just got the pieces. The guard play is still figuring itself out, but they're a powerhouse, man. Shout out to Coach Vanderveer.
Yeah, they've been awesome. I got to pick some upsets, and I also have to give just a little bit of devil's advocate here and there. Kansas versus Oklahoma, number 23 Kansas taking on number 19 Oklahoma. I have the Jayhawks.
I'm going with Kansas too, man. They're super talented. DeJuan Harris is playing like an excellent PG this year. Bobby Pettifor is coming along. Grady Dick has been amazing, and I'm not a big fan of Jalen Wilson taking that many shots. I think he's gonna have to come down a little bit from that, but for the most part, like they're figuring it out, man. They got a lot of pieces on that Kansas squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on that. I've been a huge fan of Jalen Wilson all year. I picked him a third of the way through the season as my player of the year. On the last episode of this series. Super impressive. Wrapping it up, we got NC State versus UNC, the North Carolina rivalry. I got NC State. Who do you have?
I'm going with NC State too, man. As much as I love Deja Kelly, I just think Jakia Brown-Turner, alongside the rest of that running cast you got, Mimi Collins starting to play well too. I'm going with the pack in this one.
Yeah, sweet. I know that we both want to get to watching this rest of this game, and I really appreciate your time, Kevin. Just want to plug your Twitter quick and anything else you got going on.
Man, yes, at EasymoneyKev7. I appreciate you for having me, Caleb. It's been an honor and a privilege. We got to do this more. I'd love to have you on my podcast as well, too.
Absolutely.
Sure.
We'll make that happen.
Yep. Yeah, you can just follow me on socials, man, at EasymoneyKev7. You follow me, I'll follow back. Talk basketball anytime, man. Appreciate you.
Definitely a great follow. I appreciate your time. Go Badgers. I hope the Spartans lose. So we'll catch you another time. Thank you guys, and we are off the clock.